Hello and welcome to the ARM Innovation Coffee, where we talk about innovative things happening around ARM and drink coffee. If you prefer tea, please go ahead and have some tea. In this episode, we have, innovation coffee. In this episode, we have some really cool things to discuss. In fact, we are joined by a bunch of people who work at ARM, all of us developer evangelists and some engineers, to talk about the last 3 episodes we aired in the last 3 weeks, one of which was about the Raspberry Pi Pico, another about the Arduino Portenta, and the third one about TinyML, where we were joined by what we're calling the TinyML Avengers. Lots of cool things that happened during these 3 episodes, and so we're going to definitely touch on all of the highlights there. We also have some really cool demos to show off, and we will show those off. But before you get too excited, make sure you like the video here, and after the episode, cruise on over to the ARM Software Developers YouTube channel and subscribe, because we do these every single week with lots of really cool things happening all the time. So Alessandro, we're ready to bring in all of our colleagues, right? Uh-oh, did he freeze? I think he froze. So I will bring in our colleagues. We have Carla Garcia.
Hi, everyone.
Carlo, hello, how are you doing? Alessandro, are you back? I don't think he can hear us. You all can hear us. Oh, okay. We'll let him figure out his issues while I bring everyone in. Carlo, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Carla Garcia. We have Carl Fezer and Henry Woodcock, all joining us, all from within ARM, and we're going to get to know all 3 of you in just a moment. Sorry, Alessandro's having some technical issues, so I guess let's just dive into this. We did allocate some time here because you're not always on this show. Everyone already knows Alessandro and I, so let's kind of do a little roundtable here and just get to know who you are, what you do for ARM, and then we will tackle the cool highlights that we've been seeing these last few episodes. So Carlo, let's start with you. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm Carla Garcia. I'm an intern here at ARM. I study AI and computer science at university. I'm here for a year, and I work on IoT, and I do cloud connectivity demos, mostly on like Mbed OS, Cortex-M devices. I've worked a lot with the Pico lately, and yeah, just overall developer advocacy.
That's awesome. And we've seen some really cool stuff that you pushed out recently. Huge fan of that Twitter post on the ARM Software Dev Twitter channel. There was this nice thread of the cool demo he did with a Pico. So lots of other cool stuff that you're doing, of course, and we'll get to touch on that. Carl, you're up. And you've been on this show before, so maybe.
Yeah, I've been on the show. I'll keep it brief. Carl Fezer, machine learning, or I guess I'm an AI ecosystem evangelist. Yeah, and very similar to what Carlo does. I just do it as well.
Have some fun with ARM innovation. Henry, you're up. Welcome.
Yeah, so I'm also an AI evangelist.
This sounds like a weird joke.
I do a lot of work with TensorFlow, like Micro and TVM, sort of playing around trying to get ML working on microcontrollers.
Awesome. Yeah, this is going to be fun. I know Carlo and Henry have both brought some cool demos with us to kind of accent the things we've done in these last few weeks. Carlo has some demos on the Pico, I believe maybe even the Arduino as well. And then Henry brought some ML demos to show us. So we're going to go through this in a segmented way. We're going to touch on all 3 of these episodes. We each have some cool things that we pulled out. The first episode that we're going to talk about is the Raspberry Pi episode, where we were joined by Gordon Hollingworth, the CPO of Raspberry Pi, and Luke Wren, who's a software engineer there. And I know I had you all pick out some highlights to share with us. So maybe we can kind of do a little roundtable here and talk about like some of the things that we thought were exciting about these episodes. Want to start, Carlo? I know you join all these videos. You're always watching, so maybe you have something fun to talk about.
Yeah, just a second. Let me turn off my notification here. Yeah, so the Raspberry Pi Pico episode was, in my opinion, like one of the best episodes we've had on Innovation Coffee. I was very passionate about it. I actually managed to get my hands on the Pico a few weeks before it even went out. Thank you to Raspberry Pi for that, by the way. And yeah, we got to see an insight into how Raspberry Pi operates and how they kind of weigh the pros and cons of picking features. One of the things that they try to optimize for is how do we fit in as many features as we can on the board so that 90-something% of our user base is satisfied, right? So they try to give you the most bang for your buck, essentially. And I think this board is living proof of that. Running on a Cortex M0 Plus, 133 megahertz, like it's an insane board for $4. And we also got some crazy features like the PIO, programmable I/O, and I think overall a great episode. Yeah.
Talk about like bang for your buck, $4. I mean, I feel like shipping for that board in most regions from anywhere is going to be more than that. So total bang for your buck. Alessandro's back. I think I pulled off the intro, I hope.
Very good, Robert. It's always great when you decide to do a live stream and the computer decides to restart. It's one of the best things that can happen, right? We're back. It has restarted.
Yeah. Let me give you a lowdown what we did real quick. So yeah, all of our three colleagues here have just introduced themselves, and then we dove right into the Raspberry Pi episode where Carlo kind of gave one of his highlights there. So I mean, I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in. I of course have some things I'm excited about, but I can go last.
Well, let me go next. Given that,
do it.
Just given that I don't know what you guys said, I'll just say what hit me, and then you guys can tell me if you've said it already. It was really cool because we had actually the employer number one, right? Like it was really awesome to hear from Gordon, the first employer at Raspberry Pi, and from the engineer that was working actually on the Pico. I think he started at Raspberry Pi as an intern and worked on this Pico project. I think, isn't it like the perfect project that everybody would like to start on? Is like, develop this new generation of boards and do it all kind of like basically like do everything, right? Like, because I think a company like Raspberry Pi, you probably get involved in software, hardware, optimizations, and a bit of everything, right? So it was really cool. And one thing I was going to show actually, or talk about, was the two demos that Luke showed us. So he showed a demo running basically a whole video from the Pico, and it was running over I2S, and it was quite impressive. I mean, he was showing like it was running each frame by frame, so you could actually rewind and go forward per frame, like each frame. So you could decide to fast forward or rewind frame per frame. I thought that was really, really impressive.
Yeah, so Luke Wren, props to Luke. You are awesome. This guy was an intern who then turned into a full-time employee, and literally his entire career was helping to create and enable the RP2040. So his whole career has been working on that chipset that's on the Pico. And yeah, that demo, I mean, you saw it. If you go back and watch the video, he had the Pico soldered onto this daughter card with the VGA output, two 3.0 millimeter audio jacks, and he literally plugged it right into a monitor and had Office Space running. Hopefully we didn't run too much of the time of Office Space, but yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool. Oh, there he is. Yeah, Luke Wren.
You got it.
The amazing Luke Wren, software engineer from Raspberry Pi. So very cool demo. Yeah, and I think it was running at like 48 megahertz. So also another grand achievement there.
Yeah, and you could see like it was really cool. I really liked the fact that you had basically the ability to go back and forth on each of the frames, right? It was really impressive actually, and yeah, he was it was quite impressive actually to see it live. But yeah, that was one of my highlights, I think.
Cool. What about you, Carl?
2 cores. I like that it's got the 2 cores. Like, it's cool seeing this. It's basically I there's been the discussion of like Moore's laws, like is it still valid? What's going on? But as soon as you start seeing multiple M0s on one like microcontroller, you're like, well, I guess this is what we're doing everywhere now.
Yep.
I'm excited to see more of that, and then what can you do with them? So
more, no pun intended.
Yeah, more. I want to see more of that. No, so I think it'll be really exciting.
Cool. I mean, feel free to speak up, right? I mean, Henry, if you have anything to input there.
I was just going to say the multi-core thing is something I never worked with, but on the Pico, done really simply, both in MicroPython and in the CSDK. I've never worked with it before, but I could figure it out all by myself. So I'm sure anyone can use 2 cores in their code.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, not to give it away, but Henry, you're going to show something shortly, right? That involves the 2 cores, aren't you?
Yeah. So wait for that.
Yeah, but
Nice.
I think what was interesting was the fact that, as you said, Henry, I don't know if anybody else brought it up, but the fact that on day one they came out with a lot of documentation for the CSDK, but also for the MicroPython SDK. I thought that was really cool. I give you the option to run with one or the other.
Yeah, definitely. I think.
And, sorry, go on, Henry.
I was just going to say, I think, because for myself, I hadn't really worked with microcontrollers very much, and it was a very nice introduction to getting involved in it. It was my second microcontroller, and I could figure out how to do it all. So it's great for anyone, really.
So one of the things that I really like, and this kind of, I want to say, summarizes the last 3 episodes we've had, is that we had kind of an opportunity to really get to know these guests, and I want to call them all-stars in this space. We got to know them on a personal level. And Alessandro, we put together this cool little segment called What Were You Thinking? And we brought up some pictures of, Gordon and Massimo, and we got to really communicate with them. And I know this is somewhat of a tech stream, but I feel that these types of conversations help me, as I grow personally and in my career, talking with some of these all-stars, the things that they were doing 10 or 20 years ago that I only heard about 5 years ago. And, they literally built the foundation that we get to take for granted. And I mean, I just think it's amazing that we had the opportunity to talk to them. And, all the people here that are viewing, if you do have a chance to go back and watch these videos, if you didn't see them live, they're all on the ARM Software Developer YouTube channel. Get to know these people. There's a lot to learn from them, even on a personal level. So I love that.
Very true.
Yeah. Cool. So do we dive into the demo now? I mean, we have 2 more sections to cover. I think we're going to do 3 demos. So it's a demo for each one of these videos. What do you think?
Let's do it. I think we had some fun. We had some fun. Yeah, let's do it. We had some fun, after the episodes, putting together some demos, right? So I think let's start with the first one.
Okay. So first, I'm going to give you an overview of what the demo is about. I've got a Raspberry Pi Pico, and that's hooked up to an ArduCam. If you get the drivers for that and use TensorFlow Lite Micro, you can actually get person detection model working on this. Then I hooked that up to the Raspberry Pi 4 so that I can get the image from the ArduCam, pass that on to the Pico, do the person detection model, figure out if there's a person in the frame, and then if there is a person, wake up the Raspberry Pi 4 and further analyze the image. For this demo, I actually put a second camera on the Raspberry Pi 4 just to make it easier to showcase, and a green LED so that if a person is detected, the green LED will turn on. And we can analyze the picture on the Raspberry Pi 4. If there's a face, a human face that is not my face, it will send a notification to my phone. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Just a second.
There we go.
Oh, actually, another thing that might be cool to showcase first is this. I'm going to share my screen. 1 second.
So we can see Carlo playing around with
screen?
multiple cameras. Yeah, we can see it. 1 second. I'll bring it up. There we go.
Cool. So this is just a processing sketch to get the information from the ArduCam. This is I've got a TTL to USB converter hooked up to the Pico board. That way I can get the data, the camera data from the Pico board onto my computer, and using this processing sketch, I can actually see it live right here. And as you can see, it doesn't think there's a person there. So that's how you know if your model is working properly, essentially. Now I'm going to show the other camera. 1 second.
There we go. We see you. so we see you from above.
Cool. So you can see this whole setup, right? So I've got the Raspberry Pi 4 here, right? And the Raspberry Pi Pico, the Arduino, and a green LED. And here's the TTL to USB converter so that I can get the serial data so that I can display whatever the camera is seeing on my laptop. So essentially, I'm going to place myself in front of the Arduino. Once that picks me up, this green LED will turn on, and that will also turn on the Raspberry Pi 4. Once this is on, I'm going to show it this picture, and since this is not my face, it will send me a notification telling me that there's a stranger at my desk. So just going to put this back.
And the cool thing, while you do that, Carlo, I was just going to add that obviously the Raspberry Pi is off, and this is like, it's to showcase really how you can utilize like the combination of the two to save power, right? And that's quite cool.
Correct.
Yeah. So we saw the green LED go on.
Correct. That's the main thing to emphasize here. I mean, the Raspberry Pi 4 can be off for most of the time, and then most of the processing can be offloaded onto the Pico, and that way we can save a lot of power. So the Raspberry Pi 4 is now on. So I'll show you this image of Elon Musk.
And we should also say that you've trained it so that it recognizes obviously only your face at the moment. So anything else is.
And I've got an IFTTT notification. I don't know if you can see that.
It's a bit. Oh, there we go. Raspberry Pi detected a stranger at home.
Correct.
We got it.
Yep. So it's a pretty cool little demo. As you can see, the power of this little board, that despite the fact it's a $4 device, you can actually run a full person detection model. We'll also put some links in the description so you can see the TF Lite micro port for the Pico board, as well as the Arduino drivers. I mean, this was all enabled by the work that these guys put in to develop the drivers for the camera, as well as to the work done by our guest from last week, Pete Warden, on TensorFlow Lite Micro, and porting that onto the Pico board.
Also,
sorry, I was just gonna, go ahead, please.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I think that this is super interesting, right? Like these little innovations that kind of stretch what you're capable of doing in a DIY fashion versus what's available as a consumer product. Because, I mean, I have Nest cameras all around my house, right? But the problem with these cameras is that in the effort to make these, I say, more user-friendly, you kind of sacrifice a lot of the subtle things like that you just showed, right? I get notifications nonstop. Like my cat moves in front of the camera, even for my wife and I, like if we trigger the camera, it just notifies me nonstop. My phone's just nonstop beeping, right? If I was able to, safe list my face and my wife's face and safe list my cats, which I can't do, it would make it a much more robust system. And these DIY, setups, I think, are awesome.
Yeah. And the great thing about it, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, like, are we going to be able to share the code for this? Can people take this and go build it?
Yes. I need to finish up the Hackster page, and then we'll put that in the description as well. Although the code itself is, that will also be on GitHub, so you can find that there. Yeah.
Awesome. And the last thing I wanted to, so A13 is asking a question. Which IDE is that? I didn't see, Carlo, did you use the Tony or were you using?
No, that's the processing IDE. So it's from the processing project, the processing language. It's like a Java-based, higher level Java-based language that allows you to quickly prototype things, usually for visual sort of works and processing image data. It's very good for that.
Cool.
Awesome.
We'll add the link to that as well in the description afterwards. Cool.
All right.
Thank you, Carlo.
Yes.
No worries.
Amazing. So is it time to move on to the next video? I mean, just to let you know, like if you're watching this and you're in the chat, feel free to also comment your highlights, because I know that there's some people in here who got to watch these episodes. If you have some highlights that you'd like to let us know about, we'd also love to share those. But yeah, should we move on to the Arduino episode? I know that's probably your favorite, Alessandro.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. But I was also gonna add, actually, if anybody has any questions on that demo or more in general on, you know, things about ARM or things about machine learning, you know, we're happy to try and answer all your questions. So feel free to post them in the chat, and we'll take them live here. And yeah, I mean, let's go to the next episode. So this was the episode that we just talked about was 3 weeks ago, and then we had another episode 2 weeks ago. Carlo's amazing. Oh, there you go. Gianfranco really liked your demo, Carlo. So yeah, we had a really awesome episode 2 weeks ago with Sebastian Romero, lead interaction designer at Arduino, and Massimo Banzi, one of the co-founders at Arduino. And it was an episode, I said it actually on that episode as well, but I'll say it again. It was an episode that I had in mind for a long time. And I've always thought, you know, wouldn't it be cool if we had Massimo and we actually had him talk to us about how everything started, right? And we finally did it. And actually, you know, I want to be clear. It wasn't Massimo that didn't want to do it. It was more, I think, me and Robert thinking, like, should we actually, you know, are we that important? Should we actually invite Massimo Banzi on our show? And we're kind of, you know, thinking about it for a while, and then we did, right? So Massimo accepted right away. So, you know, hats off to him.
I will say, you know, doing these things and meeting with folks like Massimo and the employee number one of Raspberry Pi, you do kind of like go to bed the night before thinking that, you know, maybe you're dabbling in a bit of imposter syndrome. Am I capable of truly interviewing these people? Like, why am I capable of interviewing these people? But yeah, I mean, it was truly an awesome moment. I mean, you meet them at conferences and they'll take a selfie with you, right? But it was really cool to have a standing conversation about that stuff. So I have a highlight I'd like to share about the Arduino episode, if that's okay. I really liked the conversation we had with Massimo about the Maker Faire. And I mean, I think that this was a really big deal back in 2019, the last Maker Faire that happened. I think it was 2019. Gosh, you know, Massimo was telling us about how, you know, it was one of the first things that he ended up doing when they founded Arduino back in 2005. And then the Maker Faire literally preceded it in 2006. And, you know, he was pulling his money together to get a flight across the ocean to go to the Maker Faire in California. And it was expensive, but then it became a tradition to him. And I started thinking about like how it probably became a tradition for a lot of people. And it's no longer really there. I mean, there are little Maker Faires that pop up here and there, but it was really interesting. He didn't want to take credit for Arduino being kind of like one of those pivotal pieces that led to the creation of such a fair. But if you look at, you know, chronologically, Arduino comes out in 2005. You have these at-home microcontrollers, the ability to build these DIY projects that wasn't there previously. Again, we've touched on this before, Alessandro. Buying these developer platforms, these ARM developer platforms, you had to spend an arm and a leg to get your hands on stuff like this. Along comes Massimo and his crew, and they develop something that can actually be purchased for a reasonable price and put on your desk, and you can start building cool things like what Carlo and Henry are going to be showing us. But the Maker Faire comes out the next year, and sure enough, of course, Arduino just has a huge presence and escalates their presence throughout the next decade. So, I mean, kudos to Arduino for being such a big part, of that. And I think, like, you know, this also led to Arduino being a big part of my life, right? Like following the Maker Faire, and my first microcontroller was an Arduino. So, Maker Faire, very sad to see you go. I really hope it does come back at some point in the future, but yeah, that was a little bit of it gave me the feels, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I just want to, that was really, that was the part I think I liked the most too, because like the maker movement kind of died. I don't know if it was a movement, whatever. Anyway, like Arduino is kind of very representative of that demographic. And like the fact that they basically went out with the design thinking mindset to do a developer focused kit meant that it was easily accessible. And that accessibility has now carried on into like machine learning platforms within that same kind of mindset in terms of now you can do machine learning in the palm of your hand. That is very cool. And like that kind of mentality, instead of focusing on like profit or we're going to solve like this specific problem for one group. They kind of just focused on making it accessible, and it worked.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is another interview I did with Massimo. I remember actually exactly this point, Carl. He said to me, it was actually at Dev Summit, so it was in October. He said to me, Arduino has always been great at basically getting developers to do embedded without letting them know that they were doing embedded. So the reason why all these people like created really cool embedded projects was because actually they didn't realize they were even creating embedded projects. The point was they made it so easy that, it's like you don't get that kind of confidence, that kind of scare, that feeling of being scared of like doing something more complicated than perhaps you've done in the past, right? And it's just that feeling of, oh yeah, this is just programming, right? It's what I've done in the past anyways. And I think that was a big thing. It's always been a big thing for Arduino. And you said actually something that I was going to mention as well, the design thinking approach and the real like interaction design approach to building project or products is really a key to them and to what they've done. And it was kind of like, it goes alongside with the maker movement as well, right? Because to some extent it's like, it's that idea of, enabling people to create and to explore and to try out stuff, right? And not really, not give them the tools to experiment, right? I think that's what Arduino has always been, right? The baseline for experimenting.
Yeah, like the priorities was never performance. Like they were like never going to be like, oh, we're going to get the fastest microcontroller. They're going to make it the most accessible, and then through that you solve the most problems. It's by targeting like not the super users, you target the everybody else, and then you kind of, that's how you get open, like bring everybody else into it. I like that.
So I want to bring up a quick comment from iShot JR here, and this is going back to the maker movement. He doesn't believe it died in the same way as computers were the realm of computer clubs. Now it's just super accessible. And if I'm understanding this correctly, I do agree, in the sense that you used to have to go to maker fairs to kind of get in touch with what's happening right now in the space. What's happening in the maker world. And I do agree, right? Like things are more accessible now with the whole explosion of the internet. And I mean, 2005, I think that was before the iPhone, right? So like you didn't have access to these smartphones that you could go just tap into whatever you want, right? And so nowadays, with all the access that we have, cheap access to or affordable access to these developer devices, maybe the maker fair didn't necessarily die, but the maker movement has transitioned to a more, I want to say like decentralized way where everyone kind of has access to it in their own little spaces, right? And then we can kind of come together during meetups and, ad hoc discussions. So yeah, good point, iShot JR.
Yeah, I would agree to that. I regretted saying it as I was saying it. Like everything.
Cool. Anybody else have any highlights that they want to bring up about that episode 2 weeks ago?
I mean, one thing that this sort of captured my mind on that episode is that I was actually watching it with a friend, and she was mentioning like, okay, the Portenta, for example, is meant to be industrial grade Arduino, but is that actually the case? Like she was talking about how in her country you reach temperatures of minus 40 degrees. So like she wouldn't be able to put this outside for some like ML thing where she wanted to like monitor crops and that kind of thing, right? Because during the winter, like it just wouldn't survive the harsh conditions, but actually it can. So it's got a operational temperature between like minus 50 or something. I don't remember the actual temperature, but it can definitely handle up to, I think, minus 40 degrees. So it's definitely much more robust than your like average Arduino board. And I think that's going to open the door to a lot of more industrial type applications just for the makers, right? So,
yeah.
And that's kind of.
Oh, please.
Sorry, Rob. No, I was just gonna build on that. I think that kind of. So we talked about with Carl earlier that Arduino has always been about enabling experimentation. What's really cool, from what Carlo you just said, is that actually now think about like enabling experimentation for real products. So you can now start to experiment and build real products rather than experiment and build like a prototype. You can actually now have the means to build a final product that you can go to production with Arduino still. So like with still the ease of production or development, and I think that's a big step, forward. And I think it's going to enable a lot of really interesting use cases and applications actually.
Yeah. And because it's a, sorry, were you going to say, Robert?
I was going to say, real quick, it sounds like Arduino is enabling this too, right? So like Arduino is enabling the path to product by providing the services that you need for your derivative designs. Like they've populated things on there that they feel are somewhat kind of across the board necessary for, basic development or up to a certain level of development. But if you need more or less, they'll help you get that built. And I thought that was really cool because usually you take this off to some third party and you create a derivative design, but now Arduino is helping you create that derivative design, which I love too. Sorry, Carlo. There you go.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I mean,
that actually complements what I was going to say. So from the hardware side, you have that aspect, but then from the software side, there's also the fact that it's running underneath, it's running Mbed OS underneath. So you've got all the Arduino libraries compatibility layer. So you can stay at a higher level, right, when you're prototyping, which means you can prototype super quick. But then when you actually want to take it to production, you can step down as low as you want, right, and go all the way into Mbed OS, for example. So you've got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, awesome point. I mean, that Massimo actually once described it as an onion. So Arduino is an onion, and you can unwrap, but you can remove layers and go inside and actually do all the optimizations that you might need on the final product. But you can be certain that actually you're building on top of really stable and kind of real embedded core, right? It's an operating system, a real-time operating system that you're building on top. So you have all the capabilities of an actual RTOS, and that's really cool. So they're exposing, as Carlo was saying, the kind of an abstraction layer to that world that's more complicated, that embedded world, right? But you can take advantage of all that, and then if you need to do any optimization, you can do them on top of Mbed OS. So that's also really interesting, yeah.
So there was a comment or a question about another real-time operating system being enabled for the Portenta, and Massimo very quickly came in and said, "We love Mbed OS." I think don't quote me, but we're with Mbed OS, and I love to hear that they're supporting this and working with Mbed OS. So yeah, for all of you Mbed OS lovers out there, Portenta is there for you. I feel bad. We need to bring Henry in. Henry, you have a highlight. You've been so quiet. You're muted.
Sorry, I was muted then. No, I was just gonna say, like, I've only just found Mbed OS. I've dabbled a little bit of Arduino, but they're so similar. But I just love how easy it is to make something work compared to like having to figure it all out from scratch.
Yeah. Cool. Alrighty. Is it demo time in next segment? I think we're on schedule.
Just about.
Yeah. I think, should we pull up actually one thing from A13? So A13 is mentioning a couple of things he would like us to talk about. And I'm going to pull this up because Carl and I had a conversation the other day, and Carl.
Yeah, I'm watching it right now. I'm not listening, but I have it on in the background, is the Mars rover landing today. What he also said, and I didn't realize, is it's got a Qualcomm processor on the little drone. So it's like the first, which is awesome. So it's like the first drone on Mars. This is going to be a crazy landing. It's basically coming in at so fast, it's basically, if you've been watching the SpaceX landings, it's kind of similar because it has a rocket pack that's bringing it down because there's no atmosphere, or less atmosphere, because it has to have some form of atmosphere for the drone to fly. Anyway, it's a really exciting one. They're basically dropping a dune buggy on Mars that has a drone.
On Mars.
We agreed. Yeah, ARM first time on Mars. Is that really?
I don't know if that's true.
Maybe,
I don't know what the older
older
rovers have, like
might have had something.
Like the Pathfinder could have had one, for all I know. I'm not sure.
But Carl, the agreement was that you're going to watch it, and if anything happens, you let us know, right?
Yeah,
Let
yeah. I
everyone
think
know
they're
here, right?
they're still coming in, and like it's the big thing starts soon. So as soon as everybody's done watching this, you should definitely switch over to NASA TV and watch the Mars rover landing.
And I mean, we should tell everybody that we timed it. I mean, you know, it's not a case, right? We've told Mars, sorry, not Mars,
We told
NASA
NASA.
to actually do this, you know, do their landing after the episode, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
We're
should
very
thank us.
we're very intertwined with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So real quick, actually, before we move on to the next thing, I did want to bring up, if anything, two more highlights. I think there's time for this because I think these were important things that were touched on during that episode, the Arduino episode. So one is I really like how Massimo brought up the portenta as an ingredient, and I'm going to try to quote it here, an ingredient to a much more complex system. So, you know, you think of microcontrollers, and a lot of times people will bring up, oh, well, why didn't you add this component? Or why didn't you add this component? And the truth of the matter is, you know, like it is one piece to a bigger puzzle, right? And I mean, granted, you can use the portenta for all of your needs depending on your use case, but I really do like kind of like looking at this as, you know, as a cooking ingredient to what you're trying to ultimately create, right? That was one thing I really liked. The other thing was the Pro IDE was brought up, and I think that this is an important release for Arduino. So the Pro IDE right now, they have the CLI version of the IDE, the behind-the-scenes workings of it, I guess, available. But when we talked to Massimo and Sebastian, they mentioned that this Pro IDE might be available in the coming weeks. I'm not sure. This was a couple weeks ago. So, you know, if it's out and I didn't notice it, oh, that sucks. But for all of you out there watching it, go check that episode out. They do talk about that Pro IDE and the command line interface. So that's a really good mention there.
I was going to also add another thing, actually, that Tyeth actually brought up here. I mean, he's basically agreeing with some of the stuff we've talked about. And he's saying, actually, software people are scared of resistant to low-level C and assembly. And actually, it's quite interesting that, you know, you bring this up, Tyeth, because you're kind of putting together assembly and C, and obviously they're two different things. But actually, I do agree with you. Software people are also scared of C. It's probably as much as they are of assembly. And I mean, obviously, it depends what software people we're talking about. But I think I agree with you. There are a lot of software people that probably are not fan of C, and they probably, you know, especially like newer software developers that are more used to like higher level languages such as Python or, you know, Go or other languages like that. I think I'm really looking forward to the time when it will be kind of normal to write code on higher level languages and compile it down to a microcontroller based, you know, executable. And obviously there are things already happening, but yeah.
I mean, I'm scared of C.
I was just going to say, I think even if it's not used for the end product, MicroPython is great just to sort of test out what you're doing really quickly. Then you can try and figure out how to do it in C afterwards, but at least you know it works in MicroPython.
Yeah, I think like each layer that you go down, right? Like the interpreter languages as you go up, but as you go down, at some point, right? Like you got to think about, am I going to really maximize or increase the efficiency, the cycles, the code that's running? And the average person, right? Like if you're a CircuitPython or a Python person, the average person can't dive down into assembly and maximize anything. You need like people who have lots of experience to do anything like that. But yeah, again, kudos to those people who are working on those low levels to enable these interpreter languages.
Right, let's dive into the second demo. We've got, I think we've got Carlo on stage again, don't we?
Yep.
Yeah.
This time it'll be a portenta demo, running person detection. So I'll just show the portenta real quick here. I'm sure most of you know what it looks like. So that's the camera module. And then just the portenta on the back, or I guess the camera module on the back of the portenta. And
Carlo, we should also say, can you actually let me show it while you switch around. Let me show the portenta I've got. Oh, sorry. So you can see this is one of the latest. 1 second. Yeah, there we go. This is the back, right? But actually, it's not just a camera module. I mean, the Vision Shield, it's got a couple of versions, but this one has got LoRa module on top of it as well. And that's quite interesting because it is really interesting to think about LoRa in when it comes to TinyML, right? So I think probably that's probably why they put it together. But yeah, as Carlo was saying, I'm a big fan of this sticker on here. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It says, can you read it?
Made
Designed, yes. I'm Italian, so that makes me happy to read that on the board, on the chip. Sorry. Oh, my camera's. So let's go back to Carlo. Sorry for interrupting you, Carlo.
No worries. Can you guys see my screen? I'm on the Arduino ID.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just going to compile this real quick. I'll put myself closer to my Wi-Fi just in case, to make sure everything goes smoothly.
We should explain to people what we're doing here, and also, are you compiling? Yeah, person detection. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, do you want to explain what we're doing here?
Yeah. So we're using the person detection model from TensorFlow Lite Micro running on the Portenta, and we've got various programs doing all the image scaling, and then sending also connecting to a server. So I've got an Ubuntu server set up on the Windows subsystem for Linux, and it's a flash server, which I'm going to run now. So we can see that the server starts up, and so far we don't have anything yet. But when the Portenta finishes compiling and it connects to the Wi-Fi, we're going to get a post request here, which is going to be sending the Portenta image along with the classification onto this web page. So just to recap, we've got the model running here. So I'll open the serial monitor. As you can see, the Portenta is connecting to my Wi-Fi. There we go. So it's sending already the images to the server, and just a second. There you go. So you see that post request right there? That means we got something on the server, which means it should now be displayed on this page right here. So as you can see, that's the live feed being sent through Wi-Fi to the server every few seconds, and there's no person on the image. But if I point the camera at myself, I think there's a bit of lag. Oops, 1 second. I think it's the wrong way around.
Can see you now.
Yep.
Yeah, they should have put a sticker with an arrow that says which way is the camera, because I was doing the same earlier, and it's hard to remember which one is the. So
as you can see, it detected me. This works really well if you're farther away from the camera, but at the moment I'm really close as I have it plugged into my laptop. But yeah, as you can see, it does person detection.
And what's cool is basically you can find this on the GitHub. I shared a link on the chat as well. You can find this on GitHub, and it's basically TensorFlow. I mean, it's TensorFlow Lite Micro. It's a port of one of the examples they've done for detecting a person, and it's been ported now to our friends at Chariot Solution have actually ported it to the Portenta board. So now you can run it on the Portenta board. And what's nice about what Carlo showed is actually now you're able to send this on this project. You're able to send the image to a Python server and see the image while you're kind of taking pictures, because otherwise it'd be hard to visualize them given that there is no screen, right? So it's always a bit of a challenge when you try to put together projects like this, because it's hard to even know where the camera is facing, right? So it's that was one of the complications at the start was, the person wasn't being detected, but actually it was probably most likely because we were facing it the wrong way, right?
I mean, so that you can always go old school and use an LED, right, to debug things. That's a nice thing about microcontrollers. Just put an LED everywhere.
Absolutely.
So while we're at it on this topic, showing that repository there, it's github.com/arm-software/developer. This is, I think, as far as I know, the first community-oriented ARM GitHub repository. So if you're working on a project and you want to go contribute something to this community, possibly get some more visibility for the project, find people to collaborate with, we're glad to host these projects under, of course, certain terms. But go check out that repository. Check out the contribution terms or whatever rules and regulations, and let us know, right? If you're joining us next week and you go check out the repository, you have questions, bring them to the show. And we'd love to answer them here and or open an issue on the repository. So really cool new development around what we're capable of showcasing and sharing.
Awesome. Cool. I think we're ready to jump. I mean, we're actually doing very well on time. I'm actually surprised. A lot of, it's a lot of people today on the show, but we're being very organized. I'm actually surprised of myself and everyone else because we're actually keeping to time. So it's going well. We've got the last episode that we wanted to talk about. And actually what's interesting about the last episode that we had last week, actually, is that it kind of brings everything together because we've talked about the Raspberry Pi Pico, that we had, we had a chance to interview the guys from the Raspberry Pi 3 weeks ago. Then we had Massimo Banzi 2 weeks ago talking about the Portenta, and then we had Pete Warden. And actually, I should name all the people that were. Let me just get my notes because it was quite a few people. So we had Pete Warden, TensorFlow Lite Microtech lead at Google, Zach Shelby, CEO at Edge Impulse, Sean Heimel, guru of content creation. You probably know him. If you don't, you should check out his videos. And then Jenny Plunkett, user success engineer at Edge Impulse. So we had all these people on talking about TinyML and how to get started with TinyML. And that's what ties like these 3 episodes together, I think, in my view, at least, because we're talking about microcontrollers. And, it's interesting that all these companies, Arduino, Raspberry Pi, are really getting into this space of actually running real models, machine learning models on these microcontrollers. And we're seeing more and more use cases of people actually deploying this stuff in real use cases. So yeah, let's talk about the last episode, getting started with TinyML. Who wants to go first? Carl, what was your favorite highlight?
Sure can. Oh, I need to actually look at my notes for that because I wrote it down when I was watching. Oh yeah. Okay. So basically everything we've been talking about, it is really summarized well in TinyML. It's meant to be this cheap, approachable, accessible version of machine learning, and all the tools, a lot of them, like there's still ways to go in terms of making this easier, but Edge Impulse is a really good representation of how easy can you do it right now. Just the whole like click and drag and click and tag and train, and 5 minutes later you can have a model deployed. That's really cool. Well, I also like that, I think Pete brought this up, is when I first got into IoT, it was at Smart Things, which was basically overcomplicating simple solutions like light switches. You're like, oh yeah, we can automate your light switches by like pulling out your phone and tapping on your phone and turning on your light. But now with like embedded machine learning, you kind of go back to the simple solution where you have a light switch and now you can just voice activate it, and you don't have to have an internet connection. You don't have to have your smartphone anywhere near your hands. It's kind of getting back to this redesign, like reshifting the paradigm back to solving the problems where they actually are, instead of overcomplicating them with the cloud. Basically, it's like, just because you can do something in it with the internet and the cloud doesn't mean you should, especially for light switches. That was always my biggest thing, is like, I think people have really learned this one and not like this one.
And this is big on the edge play, right? Like, I mean, having this compute at the edge is a very big deal. Not necessarily pushing this unnecessary data up to the cloud, backhauling all of this stuff when it's not necessary. Save that for, the data that needs to go up there, not just Robert says turn on light switch.
Yes.
Data, there's no cost if we keep it at the edge, or lot less.
Save all that data for live streaming us talking about edge.
Exactly. But let me, Carol, given that you're on the spotlight now, I'm going to ask you a question, because we had this conversation a long way I think it was just after you joined ARM, and it was around light switches, right? And light switches and smart things. And the interesting thing is that when you start having all these things are machine learning capable, or are capable of understanding your words or your let's say voice for now, right? Like if they're able to understand your voice, and you say turn on, right? You're gonna have your whole house turning on, right? Like everything. How do you get it? Like, what is your vision of how things are going to evolve in the future? Like, how do you get these things how do you get only the one thing that you want to turn on without having to call them by names?
That's kind of the next stage of embedded machine learning, I think. Like voice assistants have kind of gotten this. They're still working on it. It's basically intent parsing. Like when you say something, what do you mean? And it's hard for people. And like we get confused all the time, and I'm like, oh, but you didn't mean that, but then you did. Like I've gotten dumped several times, but never actually realized it just because I didn't pick up on the intent. And the same's true for like a light switch or your smart speaker. And it's that like really figuring out what people are actually saying. So there's things you can do like content awareness and context, and like there's all these extra bits of information you can be putting in, and that helps. But then you also have to like make sure your model like can understand it, and you've trained it to like it's basically living with your machine learning models, and how can they learn automatically instead of you just being like here's your little box of things you have to learn. What really needs to be happening is more learning on the edge, where you put in a light. And after so many times of you walking up to the light, hitting the switch and saying, hey, turn on, it eventually gets there. We're not there yet. That's not a thing, but it's possible. And we're getting closer to like seeing how we can do that. And maybe more devices and like more IDEs or more like layers to these onions can make that easier.
Yeah. And I think the other point is right now, like, we all know there's keywords to turn things on, right? Or to actually do anything. There's always a keyword. I'm not going to say any of the keywords because last time I got like 3 things turning on. But like, there's all these keywords that like kind of get the devices to start listening, right? And I think, or actually they're all listening already, but they change state and they start listening to actually what you're saying. I think what's interesting. Oh, we lost Carl. I was going to ask him another thing, but he just dropped, so I can't ask him anymore. I'll ask you guys, everybody else on. Do you guys think we are going to be able to remove keywords from like these conversations with these devices? Because I think that's, if you start introducing intent, then you don't really need to say, light A turn on, or, keyword turn on device, so on. How long before we can remove the keyword?
If I may real quick make one comment. When we get 100 viewers on this show, Alessandro and I are going to literally try and trigger, quote me on this one, we're going to trigger everyone's devices with as many keywords as possible. So as soon as we hit 100 viewers, boom, that's it. We're triggering all the devices. But no, I think Carl pretty much touched on it. The machine learning of all of this, right? Like you start pairing the idea, or you start pairing me turning this light on, it starts to learn, like I do these things, or I turn this light on around this time. I turn this light on when I'm doing these things, pairing that particular device or that with another sensor. Possibly when I walk past this particular area, I am X% likely to ask for this light to turn on. And so over time, I think that they will start to learn, or we'll have these models in there that will learn and, basically almost predict what you're going to do. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point you just walk past this area and there's a 99% chance that you turn that light on. So the margin of error, if it turns it on and you're just like, it's actually less inconvenient for you to turn it off that one time that you would have not turned it on than it would have been to having turn it on 20 times the other time. So, I think that we're headed towards that direction.
I think another thing that you could do is use a combination of modern ML methods along with classical methods. Like I can imagine if I want to turn off this light, right, I can calculate somehow based on the sound where I'm facing, right? And if I'm saying it this way, turn off, then the light can know that I'm talking about that specific light. So a combination of ML with classical methods might be the right approach here as well. once we, until we eventually get to the intent part.
I like that.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, I do like that. There's kind of there might be a pendulum swing back to being like, wait, we don't need machine learning for this one. We can do this with just a little bit of code and some little bit more effort. So I do see, and the fusion between these two things and how they work is really exciting. Like, we'll see more of that in terms of dumb sensors coupled with smart machine learning, and like how there's a different level of robustness to each.
I just wanted to address the message that Cesar actually brought up, or sorry, the comment that Cesar brought up. So he says, just say device 1, 2, 3, obviously like the name of the device turn on. I think that's what we're doing today, right? Effectively. And I think that's fine. It works. But, it's not, if you've got a lot of devices, you have to remember all these names. I start having this issue with my Alexa, for example. I start having like different groups for different devices. And then it turns up like that, I have to remember, oh, what did I call that group? Or what did I call that light? Those lights together. And, I think it's doable, but it's just, I think it would be much nicer if you didn't have to remember the names, right? And to some extent, it's the same as the behavior that you usually have, right? Like if I have to talk to Carl in real life, I'm not going to call his name. I'm going to just look at him and start talking to him, and he knows I'm talking to him, right? So I think it's that sort of next level. And I think, as Carl said, I think the intent is the way, and it's probably going to take a while, but it's exciting. We're getting there. Yeah. Cool. So does anybody else want to bring up any other highlights about the show that we had last week with Pete Worden and Edge Impulse?
I really want to touch on one here. I think it's very important. Sean Heimel released a Coursera course, and I think this was like one of the major themes of the episode, teaching a very high level TinyML course. So there's, of course, also another course that Pete Worden did that goes a little bit more of a deep dive, gets a little more technical. But this course that Sean Heimel released on Coursera, and I've released the Coursera course, it's not easy. So, I mean, he must have put in a lot of work into this. And not only that, it's free, as far as I understand. I heard it's free.
No, it is free. Yeah.
Okay.
We've got two ARM engineers who also contributed some talks in there for guest lectures.
Awesome.
So
that's very awesome. So, I mean, who knows, maybe it becomes a cost course someday. Right now, you can go in there and watch this for free. Go check it out. Sean Heimel is amazing. He does lots of cool YouTube videos. He's a great personality on Twitter and on his videos. So I can only imagine this course is amazing. And I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I definitely will. So definitely check that out. And there's
Are we ready for it? Yeah, the link is there. Are we ready for the last demo? Are we all ready? I mean,
oh wait, one more thing before I forget. We should plug also the TinyML Summit, which is coming up and also free. It's sometime in March. It's very soon. It's a whole week. It's online. March 22nd is when it's coming.
Awesome. And we'll have some lectures there as well, right? Like some of us.
We've got some papers in there. I believe I will be doing something, so we'll see. But it should be good. It's been good in the last few years, and this is the first time they've had to do it virtually. But now it's free, so hey.
Very cool.
I'll be there. And we're actually, okay, I'll say that later. I've got something else to mention about TinyML, but I'll say it later. Henry, you're up.
On the spot.
Yes, so I've I've got a little TinyML demo, which is based on the Pico, and Alessandro sort of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but it's sort of focused on the multi-core on the Pico. And when I heard about 2 cores running on the Pico, and I saw like TensorFlow Lite Micro had been ported for the Pico, I thought, I wonder if I could run 2 neural networks at the same time. And it sort of like helps address a few problems I think that could happen in TinyML. You sort of have a model that will usually only have like one input, so you could just have audio or video. It allows you to do that combination. There's also like sort of, you can have 2 models running, one that classifies an image, but the first model might find the object in the image first to pass it to that model. So there's like all sorts that you can do with this. So I've done a sort of proof of concept for this idea, which took quite a while, but like once you get there, it's really fun. So I'll just share my screen.
There we go. We can see your screen.
Okay, great. So this, I've sort of just taken this from a research paper, but this is like the basic idea here. So you have 1 or 2 or 3 models running simultaneously, and you sort of like get that sort of adds up, and then you get your output from that. And then I've got a bit here just sort of explaining everything, but essentially what I did here was I took videos of people speaking angrily and videos of people speaking quite happily, and I kept the audio and the video. So I trained 2 models, one which classified the audio and the other one which classified the video, the video, to get sort of a overall prediction of happy or angry. So I will try and get a live demo working here. So I'm just plugging in my Pico.
Did you pray to the demo gods before this?
Yeah, I've got everything set up, so hopefully it shouldn't be too hard.
You have to sacrifice something.
Okay, so here we go. So you can see my Pico's flashing here, and what I've got going on here is 2 models running at the same time. This is with synthetic data because I couldn't quite hook up 2 inputs yet, but you get the audio score, the video score, and that's for like both happy and sad. So as you can see, audio score here, video score. When it's really positive, that means someone's really happy, and when it's really negative, it means someone's really angry. And I've got the timing in here as well, how long the loop took, because I thought it'd be quite interesting to have a quick look at like comparing these 2 models, like running it on 1 core and 2 cores. And for quite a simple model here, if I ran the 2 models one after the other on the single core, it sort of takes this time here. This is it's very small, but if you use the multi-core, you get a 13.8% increase. And this is just a really simple problem here. So you can imagine if you had 2 neural networks running simultaneously, how much it can speed up a process where you need to use more than 1 neural network at a time.
That's in microseconds, correct? I believe.
Yes, that's in microseconds. Yes, it's really small
Awesome.
anyway. But even on such a small loop there, you see a 13% increase, and it's very consistent as well.
And what is I0 and I1 on your output?
On here? Yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah, so
Go ahead.
I0, can you hear me? Sorry, I think one of my
Yeah,
AirPods
you're
just
good.
turned off. But I0 and I equals to 1 is just sort of like representing which synthetic data I've got in there. So I equals to 1 is just because I've got an array with 2 samples in there. I equals 0 is just referencing the first sample, which is happy, and I equal to 1 is just referencing the second one, which is angry. And it was just for me to sense check, make sure I was getting the right results.
That's awesome. Cool.
I mean, that's really cool. I don't know if anybody else has seen any other example or project running on 2 cores. If you have, let us know, because it's something I'm also keen to see more of. So if anybody has done anything or has seen anything, let us know. I think Henry, you've got some ideas to kind of improve this or take it to the next level. Do you want to share some of those ideas?
Yeah, so sort of like ideas that you can take to the next level from this, I think Cole mentioned them as well, was you could have 2 image models running continuously, 1 on each core, but then you'd sort of be able to change model based on like light in the room. So you might have 1 model that detects someone in the daylight, and it's very direct at doing that, and another model that detecting somebody in like a dark light setting. And it's sort of based around the idea that like on TinyML, you can't really fit a big model that can do everything on a microcontroller. You need multiple models, and having like 2 cores can allow you to do that.
It's really interesting. I mean, it does open up to a lot of other use cases that, perhaps we haven't thought about earlier. So I think that's super interesting. And actually, the Potenta has got an M7 and M4. So I think it's a challenge for the audience. Try doing it on that, because in there you got actually a really beefy core, and then an M4 that's actually a bit smaller. So yeah, it's the STH7, I think it is, that's underneath the hood.
Alessandro,
Cool.
I want to be conscious of the time of our viewers and all of us here. Do you mind if we kind of close this out? I also have something I want to ask the community here. It's okay?
Go ahead, do it.
Awesome. So everyone watching, this is a little bit different than what you might be used to watching Innovation Coffee, having all of these ARM colleagues on talking about and summarizing the stuff that we've done these last few days. If you have any feedback or things you want to see more from us at ARM, please drop a comment in this video. We'd love to hear from you. You're always so active in the chat. We love seeing you there. Love the conversations and everything that you've shared with us. Of course, we're always looking to improve these streams. We bring on some amazing guests, as you've heard us all talk about today. But I mean, the community, you are, I think, what's most important to us. So drop a comment, let us know if you're interested in participating in one of these innovation coffees. We're here to listen. Tell us what you're working on, bring you on the show. Other than that, I want to thank everyone, and I'm sure everyone here will get a chance. Everyone can go ahead and thank the audience, but thank you everyone for joining us. And thank you so much for these demos. And I love all of you guys. This is awesome. This was a fun episode. This is great. So yeah, are we closing out? I was going to let someone else.
Yeah. Anyone want to say anything?
Sure, I will. Yeah, no, I think that was a really good way to combine. Like, you did have a really nice month of just TinyML stuff, and it's really nice to remember that all of these things are actually connected. So I think this was a great way to do it. Next time we can have clips or flashbacks and just do the phone in episode where we have it's clip time.
Yeah,
let's do that. And I mean, Carlo, Henry, do you guys want to say anything, or I'll say?
It seems like iShot JR is asking when the 24-hour stream. I'm gonna push for that here internally. That'd be a fun thing to do. Maybe for Dev Summit or something. I don't know.
I mean, if we do it, iShot JR will have to be on.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to be on. That's the one condition because you've been pushing for it for so long.
Oh gosh, you know what? Actually, if you don't mind, this brings up a good point here. I really want to share this. I hope you don't get mad at me, iShot JR, but there's a really cool event that he is hosting. I'm going to share this right now in the chat.
Oh, yes, I heard about that as well.
Yes, and I'm going to add it to a banner. Yeah, so it's a little show and tell event. Let's get this on a banner here too. Oh, there.
I've got it up already.
Awesome. So yeah, go check this out. From what I understand, he's going to be doing more of these. So this is the first of many, I'm hoping. If you have some cool hardware demos, projects, things you're working on ARM-based stuff, I would hope you go and bring some ARM-based projects over there. But this should be a really fun meetup. I'll be there. I already signed up. Go to that link and sign up, and we'll all hang out together. It should be, I think, pretty casual and just fun. So
I'm going to have to bring up Alex as well. He said, someone start the Clubhouse room. Robert, when are we doing ours?
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. I also have a few invites if anyone's interested. So, DM me on Discord, and I'm gonna throw this up here. But if you're on Discord, DM Alessandro or I. We have some invites. Alessandro, let's do this. Alessandro's idea, actually. So he brought this up to me not too long ago, last week. I think it's great. However, we think that we want to do a Clubhouse room, but kind of more, I want to say, high level, just community building, talking about developer communities and building out stuff. So it probably won't be too technical, at least at the beginning, but we'd love to have, I think, a Clubhouse room. Alessandro, if you're down, and if anyone else on this call, Carlo.
I actually did just get invited to Clubhouse. I was like, I don't know what to do with this. That sounds great. I've got a bunch of community friends. We could go find John O'Bacon.
I'm just going to raise this up because, I mean, actually, Mats has got a good point. He says it's not accessible. And what about Android users? I think, that is
my iPhone.
That is a real problem. I'm hoping that they open it up to more people. I mean, to be honest, I don't know. It's always hard to know how a social media will evolve, and also how relatable it is to or how related it is to tech, to the tech space. I don't know effectively if it will be big for tech people or not. But I think let's give it a shot. I think this is more of a beta. That's how I'm seeing it, at least. So I'm hoping that it will open it up to more people. But if as Robert said, if you are interested, I've also got some invites. So let us know, and we could start a community room. Guys, thank you so much. I mean, thank you to all our guests today, and thank you to all our viewers. And really, I mean, this was fun. We took a bit of a break from having any external guests, but yeah, as Robert said, I just wanted to kind of echo that. If you've got any people that you'd like to see on the show that you'd like us to interview, if you've got questions for people that we're going to interview, if you've got any topics that you would like us to cover, let us know, and we'll try our best to do it. To just get it done. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a good rest of your week. And actually, Carl, come back up. Your microphone is muted.
Yeah, I'm
How
here.
is the stream? Do we have to move to the NASA stream? I mean, are they calling us?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Is it done yet?
They're it's about to have live commentary coming up.
There we go.
Soon,
So yeah,
at 11:15.
We'll see you guys
so 5 minutes. You got to tune in.
perfect.
Hashtag innovation coffee.
Bye, guys.
Bye everyone.